Hi, I'm a possum and I find garbage. And I'm on the moon today. Why? Because I felt like it. Oh look, an alien. Ah! Dickhead! Get back here! What's this? Oh, I guess this is what I'm reviewing now. Today's garbage is The Amazing Bulk, a movie consisting entirely of actors green screens in front of stock footage. If you were watching this video on your phone in the front seat of the short bus, you might not have realized that just based on the title, The Amazing Bulk was made as a parody of The Incredible Hulk. But it doesn't really work as a parody because, aside from there being a scientist who turns into a giant monster, it doesn't really have much in common with the story it's supposedly satirizing. By the director's own admission, it took more inspiration from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, The Incredible Hulk also took inspiration from Jekyll and Hyde, but that doesn't make The Amazing Bulk a parody of The Incredible Hulk, just like how Spaceballs is a parody of Star Wars but not Flash Gordon. Just because B and C are both rip-offs of A, that doesn't mean C is a parody of B. It just means C is another rip-off of A. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, reviewing this movie makes me feel kind of stupid because any flaws I might want to talk about are already patently obvious. But this is how I make my money, so here we go, I guess. One thing I was wondering about is if this movie was made bad on purpose in an attempt to make a cult film like The Room or Troll 2, or if it was just slapped together as a tax write-off, or if the filmmakers thought they were actually making something good and were just delusional. An interview with director Louis Schonbrun, who looks exactly how I thought he would, reveals that the budget for The Amazing Bulk was $14,000, and he paid for the entire production out of his own pocket so he could retain complete creative control. $3,000 of those dollars were spent on the sound mix.
I sure as hell ain't gonna let you marry my daughter.
And another $2,000 were spent on the CGI, meaning the pre-made CGI assets he got from websites like TurboSquid and Animation Factory. So if he was willing to spend $4,000 of his own money, then it's pretty safe to assume he did not intend this as a joke. In the same interview, he claims to have worked on The Thief and the Cobbler, which famously had a tumultuous production spanning from 1964 to 1993. I have no idea what he did for that movie. For all I know, he could have been the guy at the producer's office who scrubbed semen out of the carpet. But he points to that movie, which is a janky mess of mismatched styles due to having been passed from studio to studio with different executive-mandated changes over the course of nearly 3 decades, as an excuse to not care about the coherency of visual style in his own movies. He then goes on to say that people who don't like The Amazing Bulk just don't understand what he was going for. I know I didn't, that's why I looked up this interview. And that he took influence from such films as Mary Poppins and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He says some people just can't accept live actors in an animated world, which is pretty rich considering how successful Roger Rabbit was. And he even accuses them of being jealous because they never made a movie. Well, first of all, it's a bit of a stretch to call The Amazing Bulk a movie. And second, saying you're just jealous because I made a movie and you didn't, when the movie you made is The Amazing Bulk, is like accusing people of being jealous of your model Eiffel Tower made of popsicle sticks and guano. But whatever you want to tell yourself, I guess. Schonbrun has only directed one other movie since The Amazing Bulk, and that was some mockbuster called Aliens vs. Avatars. The Amazing Bulk came out after that, but it started production in 2010. And even though principal photography only took 5 days, it somehow took 2 years of post-production to finish. Did he get lost in his own basement or something? Anyway, that technically makes this his last movie. He has since moved to the Philippines and become a film school teacher. Okay, let's just talk about the style. So Schonbrun says he was going for a Who Framed Roger Rabbit sort of thing, with live actors in an animated world. But that's not what he did. The thing is, Roger Rabbit is actually animated for the purposes of the story it was telling. When Roger Rabbit is animated handcuffed to Bob Hoskins, it's because the story needed him to be handcuffed to Bob Hoskins. So the animators animated it. What The Amazing Bulk does is it takes a bunch of pre-made assets, and then the story was written to accommodate those pre-made assets. They didn't have an animation of a rabbit handcuffed to Bob Hoskins, so they didn't do that. What they did have was a few different animations of some big purple guy, so they made a movie around that. I mean, I can understand working with what you have, but this is desperate. This is like if I bought some pre-made Pillsbury cookie dough and baked it, and then tried to sell the cookies under my own brand name. And the whole point of animation is to be able to do things you can't do with live action. You can't do a story about a satyr and a girl made of candle wax traveling to the underworld to save the moon and have it work in live action. Which is why Mune, Guardian of the Moon, is animated. All kinds of crazy creative stuff happens in that movie, and it's only made possible by animation, which was specifically made to tell that story. By the way, you should watch Mune. But when you stick to pre-made animated stock footage and don't create anything original, you're stuck having to work around the limitations of those prefabricated assets. This means you're limited in a way which completely defeats the purpose of animation. Now, you can argue that low-budget filmmaking is all about finding creative uses for whatever you have access to, but that's not what animation is about. Animation is the exact opposite of that. Animation is creating what you don't have. And there's a big difference between 5 or 6 guys gathering props from around their house to make a low-budget movie with their limited resources, and just filming your actors in front of a green screen and using stock footage for the rest. And understand, the problem isn't that they use stock footage. Lots of movies do that. The problem is the amazing bulk is almost nothing but stock footage. If I were to guess, I would say less than 10% of what we see on screen in this movie was actually made for it. This is pseudo-filmmaking. The amazing bulk is a pseudo-film. I guess I should talk about what actually happens in the movie now. The movie starts with a bunch of fake logos made to resemble real movie company logos. I especially like the one that looks like the Fox logo because it just starts zoomed in on a low-resolution JPEG. And then we cut to a cartoon city where we see a poorly green-screened woman walking down the street, and decides to go down a dark alley, which is something any rational woman would do by herself in the middle of the night. She stops to light a cigarette, but gets attacked by a mugger who puts a gun in her mouth. And then this happens. The mugger shoots the monster with a cartoon bullet, but then the monster kills him off-screen and runs away the same way I used to run from my dad. This is the movie. We then fade into a title sequence in which you can see the titles written with Comic Sans. Seriously, what kind of idiot uses Comic Sans? We get some stock footage of police tape, and if I keep stopping to point out every time they use a stock asset in this movie, this video will never end. We then cut to the murder scene where the woman lays on a chalk body outline, which isn't even drawn around her. 2 detectives named Lisa and Ray see some purple blood on the ground and find a wallet with a driver's license belonging to somebody named Henry Howard. I like how they had the actor put his thumb over the name because they obviously used the actor's real driver's license as a prop.
Henry Howard. Who the hell is this?
It's me. But I bet we're gonna find out soon enough.
We then cut to one day earlier and see 2 scientists, one of which is our protagonist Henry, who everyone calls Hank for some reason, screwing around with the stuff on the table which is so poorly green screened that one leg appears to be shorter than the rest. They complain about some serum they're working on not doing what it's supposed to, and the actors try real hard to sound like real scientists.
Every time the serum turns blue, nothing ever happens to the rat.
So it's about the color then?
Well, I can't say for sure. I don't have the appropriate data to corroborate the research.
So they've been working on this serum for 4 years, and we find out through bad dialogue that Henry has a girlfriend who he's preparing to propose to.
How about Hannah? The girl with the great personality and the great assets to match? She's the best thing that's happened in these past 4 years, my friend.
Okay, so these guys are friends, and one of them has a girlfriend. Thanks for telling us instead of showing it, movie. So Henry's girlfriend, Hannah, is the daughter of some guy named General Darwin, who our hero Henry is developing this serum for. He needs to finish the serum so he can get the General's blessing to marry his daughter before he can propose to Hannah. I guess because this is the 1800s, you need to get permission from a woman's father before you can marry her, except it isn't. What exactly is this serum anyway?
I mean, a serum to enhance the human body, heightening the immune system, increasing speed and strength.
Thanks, clunky exposition. You know, in most sci-fi movies, when they need to explain some crazy sci-fi concept to the audience, they have an expert explain it to a layman so it'll be indirectly explained to the audience. But I guess it's more convenient to just have one character explain the plot device to another character who already knows about it to convey that information to the audience in the most ham-fisted way possible. By now, you might be starting to realize this movie is failing in more than just the special effects department. The cartoon rat suddenly disintegrates, then Hannah comes walking in to pick Henry up so they can go to lunch together. They drive down the street in a badly vectorized photo of a car. They run in place through a cartoon park because they only had maybe 12 feet of green screen to work with, and make their way to a gazebo where they talk about having kids. Then we cut back to the lab. Henry and Sam do a science montage, and you can clearly see some of the stock footage they use shot at standard definition and enlarged. So they keep reusing the same 2 clips. So they come up with another serum, inject it into another rat, but then it disintegrates again, much to Henry's frustration.
No more failures!
Speaking of failures, I wonder how the human race is doing right now. Oh, look, a conveniently placed telescope. Wow, this thing has amazing resolution. I can read all the names on the tombstones. Names like Darren A.D. Kinney, Alex Bones, Anastasia Johns, Black Magic 95, Prince 699, Charlie, Chocolate Mussolini, Chris Ingram, Kobe Holmes II, Daniel Justice, Delstop, Diesel Weasel, Evan Smith, Fractal Soraya, Frankie the Ginger Degenerate, Grey Devil, A. Renan Nintendo, Ann Relata, Jan Guevara, Janice 862, Jimmy Jam, Jude 25 Bobby, Joel Burr, John Cleveland, John Fortnite, John Wellington, Josh Leifert, K55, Large Metallic Fellow, Lassie Matheson Berg, Les Squid to Quebec, Lilith Durante, Clip, Marco McFire, Exquisite, Michael Lowe, Nicholas Slater, Noble Team 33, Otaku Artist, PT Paco, Reed Slickland, Rios, Ricky Baruga, Ruin Scepter, Samurai Rise, Spectre, Spirito 1998, Zersa Fox, The Ghost of Macaulay Culkin, The Sauce God, Twilight City Studios YouTube channel, Western Reaper, Volker Nance, Wilford Facey, Zenith, and Victor Alexandrovich Gontar. What a bunch of assholes. Who put this telescope here anyway?
I did.
Oh, hey. You're that alien prick.
That's my telescope. I've been using it to spy on the Earthlings while I plan my revenge.
Revenge? Revenge for what?
Existing.
Oh, fair enough.
Savor your gaze at the Earth, Possum, for soon it will be gone.
Gone? What do you mean, gone?
I'm gonna blow it up.
Oh,
And you can't stop me.
okay.
Yes, the Earth will be destroyed, and the Earthlings will be dead, and there's nothing you can do about it. Cower in fear, puny Earthling. Tremble before my... Hey!
Later that night, Henry goes to General Darwin's cartoonishly opulent mansion to pick up Hannah for dinner. You know, a general only makes about $200,000 a year? That's about what a dentist makes. And he lives in this huge mansion bigger than Jerry Seinfeld's. What state does he live in that he can afford a house like that? Anyway, Henry goes up to the door and does that cliche thing where he rehearses to himself what he's gonna say.
Good evening, sir. General Darwin. I would love to marry your daughter. Wait. Well, that's too quick.
Hannah answers the door. Henry gives her some ugly flowers, and then they go inside and walk around until they go to run into General Darwin.
I hate dust. I don't want it building up in my home.
They ramble about the flowers for a second, then Hannah runs off to put the flowers in some water before they die horribly due to our culture's weird mating ritual that involves killing plants. You know flowers are technically the plant's genitals, right? Henry stays behind to talk to the general, but the general is afraid there could be spies listening inside his own house for some reason, so they go down into the wine cellar, where I guess there wouldn't be any spies. And then they walk in place as the background scrolls by. Henry tells the general he wants to marry his daughter, but the general doesn't take too kindly to that.
You think I want a deadbeat son-in-law? Negative.
He's a little pissed that Henry hasn't finished the serum yet.
I sure as hell ain't gonna let you marry my daughter.
So Henry gets upset and leaves. Then we cut to a spooky castle. Then our villain is introduced in a shot in which the background was somehow accidentally lowered partially out of frame, so his head overlaps the blank part. No, that's not Grimace from McDonaldland. His name is Dr. Kontlove, and he yells at his dumb bimbo of a wife, Lolita, for leaving her makeup on his antique table.
You should know that does not work on me.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. There's nothing going on downstairs.
So Dr. Kontlove's whole motivation for everything he does in this movie is the fact that he can't get an erection. And I guess that makes him insecure about Lolita flirting with other guys because he yells at her for dancing in front of the guards. He then starts chewing out one of the guards, and the other one makes a mocking gesture right in front of him. I think it was meant to look like he was doing it while Dr. Kontlove was looking away, but the movie was directed poorly. So Dr. Kontlove grabs his ray gun and uses it to turn the guard into a CGI skeleton wearing a loincloth that wasn't there before. It's almost as bad as the skeleton in Sky Captain in The World of Tomorrow. Lolita asks Dr. Kontlove about some ransom that's unrelated to the plot of this movie. and he says it was transferred to the Swiss bank account, so they go off to celebrate.
Would you like something, big?
Yes.
They go into some kind of control room and Lolita presses a button. And then we get some old footage of a rocket launching which turns into a cartoon missile blowing up a cartoon factory that says Institute of German Scientists on it, which I guess Dr. Kontlove had some kind of grudge against. Dr. Kontlove tells Lolita he's working on a solution to his erectile dysfunction, so Lolita begs him to blow up more stuff. And then we get an overly long montage of cartoon missiles blowing up famous landmarks around the world, accompanied by obnoxious screeching noises. We then cut to Henry and Hannah at a carnival or amusement park or something. Henry tries to propose to Hannah, but then she gets distracted by a roller coaster. Then we cut to them riding the subway home. Henry is about to propose, but then the mugger from the beginning of the movie shows up and steals his wallet at gunpoint. The mugger steals Hannah's earrings, then Henry feels him reaching into his pocket to steal his engagement ring. So he tries to fight the guy. The mugger punches Henry, knocking him down, and then he takes the ring and runs away. Then they ride Henry's fancy sports car through the city at 1,000 miles per hour back to the general's house. Hannah tells Henry to get some sleep, but Henry says he needs to go back to the lab to work on the serum before they get defunded. Then Hannah gets mad at Henry for taking his job seriously. Really, she just gets mad at him for basically no reason. Also, notice how they put a low-resolution PNG of a couch behind the actors, which I guess is supposed to be a car seat. If they're just gonna put the seats in digitally, they could have put actual car seats in there, but the fact that they didn't suggests they consciously decided to put a couch there instead. Why? So Henry goes back to the lab, and we get another science montage, and then Henry comes up with a new serum. He injects it into a dead plant, and it brings it back to life. Henry gets excited, but also realizes it's not enough to convince the government not to defund them. So instead of getting another lab rat, he just injects himself with it using a meat injector. I guess because they couldn't get a prop medical syringe. Just go down to the vet and get some insulin needles. How hard is that? Henry's blood turns purple, and then he turns into a tornado, and then we see a purple hand reach up. Oh wow, the tension. I wonder what's gonna happen. I mean, the reveal of the monster was already spoiled in the first 3 minutes of the movie, but never mind that, give us a little tease. We then cut to the street where the movie started, only now we see the opening scene from Henry's perspective. Wow, non-linear storytelling. How creative. We see the mugger attacking the woman again, so Henry turns into the Amazing Bulk and kills the mugger just like he did at the beginning. And then he hears the police sirens approaching, so he starts digging through the mugger's pockets for the ring. He finds the box, but it's empty, so he runs away. And for some reason, he decides to turn into the Amazing Bulk again to do that. I think the only reason is because they showed him running at the beginning of the movie, and they actually took a second to think about continuity. When really, they should have just removed those shots of the monster at the beginning since, number 1, they revealed the monster too early, and number 2, turning into a 12-foot-tall purple monster isn't a good way to avoid the police. So not only was that pointless prologue a bad storytelling decision, it also makes no sense. Louis Schönbrunn strikes me as the type of guy who would name his daughter after his favorite star. The next morning, we cut back to Dr. Kontlove's castle. These two toadies, who kinda look like Nicolas Cage and Kevin Sorbo, give him Henry's ring, explaining they ran into somebody named Scully, who it turns out is the mugger. Scully owed Dr. Kontlove some money, so these two guys threatened him and took the ring as payment. Dr. Kontlove says he'll give the ring to Lolita, then menacingly tells the two toadies they're going for a swim.
Get your swimming trunks on, because you are both going for a little swim.
So I guess he killed them. Why? I don't know. Just to be evil, I guess. Like vaporizing a guard and blowing up a bunch of famous landmarks wasn't enough to prove he was evil. We then see Henry waking up to the sound of somebody knocking on his door. As he sits up, he sees purple goo on his stomach, presumably purple blood from when he got shot. And then the voice at the door says it's the police, so he puts his wife beater on. Wait, are we still allowed to call it that? So he puts his domestic violence perpetrator on and answers the door. Detective Ray and Detective Lisa give him his wallet, which they found next to the mugger's body because Henry was too stupid to take it back when he killed him, and ask him why that guy had it. Henry explains that he was mugged, and then they tell him they found the mugger dead and ask him if he knows anything about it. He says he doesn't, so they leave. We then see Ray and Lisa sitting on the couch inside the police cruiser. Ray says he thinks Henry killed the mugger based on 2 pieces of evidence.
How come our sweet and innocent Henry knew that the mugger killed a prostitute?
You told him the prostitute was found dead next to him.
Prostitute and a criminal were found dead in an alleyway.
And he did just assault and rob Henry at gunpoint earlier that night, so it's not much of a stretch to assume the mugger killed her. For his second piece of evidence, Ray presents the purple blood on his hands, which he got from shaking hands with Henry. The same purple blood they found at the crime scene. I guess Henry somehow didn't realize he had blood all over his hand. Then they see Henry walking to the crime scene, so Lisa calls for backup, and then they follow him. They confront Henry in the alley and try to arrest him, but then he turns into the Amazing Bulk right before their eyes.
What the hell is that?
Well, it ain't Barney the Purple Dinosaur!
Ray and Lisa start shooting at the Amazing Bulk, and they chase him down the street. And by street, I mean the same backgrounds over and over again, as he knocks over various objects, including a car which goes through him. A news helicopter shows up, and a reporter tries to film the Amazing Bulk with a camcorder without a microphone or battery attached. The Amazing Bulk continues to kick over cars as he runs away, but one of the cars he kicks lands on Lisa and crushes her.
Look out! Lisa!
What the hell is this perspective? The camera's looking up toward the sky, but he's standing as if the camera's at eye level. Is he hovering in the air and looking at the ground? Is this a MC Escher drawing? And then this happens. Okay, so because they didn't have a pre-made animation of the Amazing Bulk crushing a helicopter, they decided to just take the actor who played Ray, color him purple, and film him grabbing a toy helicopter, which doesn't even look like the CGI one. And I don't think they even used body paint. He looks like they colored him digitally somehow. Anyway, the Amazing Bulk turns back into Henry, I guess because he got tired or something. Then Ray comes up and tries to shoot him, but he's out of bullets, so he just punches him. Then, some unspecified amount of time later, Henry is in prison, still wearing his street clothes. Then Ray comes in and is to shoot him for killing Lisa, which Henry insists was an accident. But then the General Darwin comes in with another cooking syringe and laughs menacingly.
What's up, Doc?
That doesn't even make sense. So why does he sound like he's talking through a phone? We then cut to a secret government facility where Henry wakes up strapped to a wheelchair. General Darwin tells him they're gonna conduct some experiments on him, and then he tells the scientists to give Henry a sedative before he turns into the Amazing Bulk, as indicated by the foam Hulk hand toy painted purple.
Sweet dreams, you purple pile of cow dung.
Meanwhile, at Dr. Kontlov's castle, Dr. Kontlov tells Lolita they has a plan to launch a rocket to blow up the moon.
I'm going to send a Saturn V rocket and blow up the moon.
Why? I don't know. They just needed something evil for him to do, I guess. We then get another tedious stock footage montage of a rocket launching, and then we get to watch this gag of spacecraft interfacing with each other, with the footage reversing and repeating over and over to simulate the act of intercourse. And because it was just so funny the first time, they do it again. And then they do it again. And again. And again. And again. And again. This seriously goes on for over a full minute. Then finally, the space thing starts making its way to the moon. Back at the government facility, General Darwin tells Henry they found an antidote, and that he's willing to let him marry Hannah. But before he'll give it to him, he wants Henry to kill Dr. Kontlov to save the world. Henry reluctantly agrees. Sometime later, Henry jumps out of a helicopter and lands in a spooky forest. He runs in place for a while, and then we cut to Dr. Kontlov's rocket landing on the moon. Dr. Kontlov presses a button, but then a monkey pops out. Don't you just hate it when that happens? Henry walks past a golf course, a leprechaun, and a wind farm on his way to the castle. See, that's another thing. Shoehorn, or whatever his name is, said they made this movie like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But none of the animation in this is original, so they just threw in whatever stock assets they had. And not even in a way that's conducive to the story. It's just thrown in randomly because they needed something to use in the background. Henry sees two guards and then pulls out a photo of General Darwin to make himself angry because rage triggers the transformation. Yeah, they mentioned that in passing earlier. So Henry turns into the Amazing Bulk and runs up to the castle. The guards run away, but then Dr. Kontlov sees him on the monitor.
What the heck? I have to use my secret weapon, Rover.
So I guess Dr. Kontlov deploys his secret weapon, which is a large spherical boulder named Rover. Rover crushes one of the guards, but then the Bulk chases the other guard up to the roof. and the guard just stands there screaming for a while until the bulk steps on him. I like how the bulk keeps changing size. He could be 10 feet tall in one scene, but then 10 stories tall in another. We then cut to Lolita walking around with a sleeping mask for some reason, and not realizing it.
Who turned out the lights?
Lolita bumps into the bulk and, mistaking it for Dr. Kontlove, she starts feeling him up.
You've grown since the last time we played.
Lolita then lifts the mask, I guess because she realized she was wearing it, and sees the bulk.
What have you done to your face? I love it!
One pointless goblin transition later, Dr. Kontlove runs through his warehouse, I guess, until he runs into the bulk. He starts pleading with the bulk to spare him, but then the bulk just steps on him. Henry goes up to the roof and radios General Darwin to tell him he killed Dr. Kontlove, but then a fighter jet tries to blow him up. Henry goes back into the warehouse, which I guess is inside the castle, and General Darwin tells him he lied about there being an antidote. For whatever reason, he decides to explain that the government had already cut their funding for the serum 2 years ago, but Dr. Kontlove continued to finance it, hoping they could cure his erectile dysfunction. But then, when Harry perfected the serum, they didn't need Dr. Kontlove anymore, so they sent Henry to kill him. But now they gotta kill Henry to tie up the loose ends. There wasn't any reason for General Darwin to tell Henry all this, it's just a cliche villain monologue. So I guess that whole plot about blowing up the moon was just to trick the audience since it doesn't really go anywhere. So then Henry turns into the amazing bulk to run away from all the random things the government is sending to kill him, including airplanes, tanks, soldiers, helicopters, submarines, archers, pirates, superheroes, Zeus, Davy Crockett, superhero dogs, and cowboys. And this goes on for 2 minutes, which feel like forever, until finally, a fighter jet being flown by a guy without a helmet drops an atom bomb on him. General Darwin watches the mushroom cloud on a monitor, I guess because there was a camera there. But then Hannah comes in and the general tells her that Henry died just saving the world from Dr. Kontlove.
No. No! No!
Back at the general's inexplicable mansion, Hannah wakes up in the middle of the night and finds Henry, who it turns out is still alive. Henry finally asks Hannah to marry him. She says yes, and then Henry tells her General Darwin tried to kill him. Just then, General Darwin comes in and tries to rush at the guy who has the power to turn into a giant purple monster. They fight their way to a balcony and fall off, and they both die. Yeah, Henry can survive getting shot and nuked, but falling 15 feet kills him. Sometime later, Hannah visits Henry's grave with a plastic rose. For some reason, they decide to put a drop shadow behind the off-center text on his tombstone, so it looks like it's floating in the air in front of it. Hannah prattles on about missing him and feeling alone, and then she puts the rose down and leaves. Then Detective Ray comes walking up.
I hope you're in hell, sitting on Satan's pitchfork, you unholy jerk.
Ray starts pissing on Henry's grave, and somehow doesn't see the ground rumbling right in front of him. Then this happens. So that's the amazing bulk. What's all this ruckus? Oh yeah, this review had a plot, I guess.
Soon my doomsday device will be complete.
Keep it down, you prick! I have a headache.
Foolish Earthling! The Earth will soon be destroyed, and no one can stop me, not even an oversized rodent like you!
What did you just call me?
A rodent! That's what you are, aren't you?
I just saved the world, and I don't even feel good about it. Thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and leave a comment because it helps my analytics. I get more views when you do that. Views equals money. Don't support me on Patreon and send me your fan art and follow me on Twitter. Bye.